Let's talk briefly about positive externalities, and let's look at the example of a flu shot. People who get flu shots produce external benefits, since people around those people don't get sick. So when I get a flu shot, I really do it to benefit myself. I don't want to get sick. Yet I create external benefit. Now people around me have lower chance of getting sick themselves. The problem with the positive externalities or goods that produce positive externalities, we don't produce enough of them. So as a society, we would like to see more people getting flu shots than actually it happens in real life. So what can we do? Once again, we can use market-based policies and command and control policies. Market-based policy would be a subsidy. We pay a certain part of the price by government. Certain part of the price is paid by the government, right? So that's what we call a subsidy. We're subsidizing that production of flu shots, so they're cheaper, so more people are able to get that. Or we can require mandatory flu shots. So we also may use this command and control policy, where no matter what, some people are required to get those flu shots. Public goods. A second example of a situation in which market on its own may not necessarily work properly, may not necessarily get to the most efficient outcome. So let's look what kind of goods we call public goods. Each good is going to have two distinct properties. First property is excludability. We say that the good is excludable if a person can be prevented from using it. For example, goods that are excludable would be such as fish tacos or wireless internet access. Non-excludable, FM radio signals or national defense. What's the difference between first set of goods and the second one? For the first one, you actually have to pay for them. You can't get a fish taco unless you pay for it. It's pretty easy also to set a price on the wireless internet access. You need a code in order to access it, and to get a code you need to pay a price. So excludable goods is pretty much equivalent to the goods that have a price attached to them. Non-excludable goods are the goods that you don't really have to pay for. Well, you may say that, well, I pay for national defense with my taxes. And you would be right. But think about how many people don't pay their taxes and still get that protection. If somebody is visiting the United States, they're still protected. Kids that don't pay taxes, they're also being protected even though they're not paying for that particular good. A second property of the good is rivalry. We say that the good is rival in consumption if one person's use of it diminishes other person's use. Rival goods, once again an example is fish tacos. I really like those. Non-rival goods, an MP3 file of Kanye West's latest single. What's the difference between these two? We can't really eat the same fish taco at the same time. Even if I decide to share some with you, you're only going to have a half and I'm gonna get another half. Whether we can both listen to Kanye West's latest single together, and my enjoyment of that single is not going to reduce your enjoyment of that good. So in a way, when it comes to rivalry, we can say, can we share that good? If the answer is yes, that good is non-rival. If the answer is no, that good is a rival. So public goods are going to be those goods that are non-excludable and non-rival. Some examples: public parks, fireworks, lighthouses. National defense is also an example of a public good. We say that public goods are difficult for private markets to provide because of the free rider problem. And free rider is a person who receives the benefit of a good but avoids paying for it. So don't necessarily think that free riders are a bad person, is a bad person. No, they simply don't have any incentives or motivation to pay for it. If good is not excludable, people have incentives to be free riders. Before we put any labels and once again start thinking that those free riders are really bad people, think about this. Have you ever watched PBS? Most of you are going to say yes. Now let me ask you a different question. How many times did you contribute it to PBS? Probably not that many of you actually donated money to that program. Even if you don't watch PBS, let me ask you another question. How many of you ever used Wikipedia? I'm sure that most of you behind your computer screen is going to think that yes, at one point or another I did. And now think, how many times did you actually donate it towards the Wikipedia? Probably very few of you going to say that yes, I did in fact. So when we're not forced to pay for the good, we simply don't have any incentives to pay for the good. So free riders are not bad people. They simply don't want to pay for something they don't have to. So what is the result of it? The good is not being produced, even though buyers value the good higher than the cost of providing it. So this could happen with Wikipedia if some people decide not to contribute at all. The good is not going to be provided, even though we all know that there are great benefits from Wikipedia. So let's see what role of government is in this situation. Since private markets are not going to provide that good, now government has a role in it. So should the government provide that good? If the benefit exceeds the cost, the government should provide the good. How are we going to pay for it? We can tax people who benefit from using that particular good. So government has this ability, maybe not directly to charge for that good, but through taxes, make sure that that good is being provided, like with national defense. We pay taxes, but we don't pay necessarily per unit of the national defense that's being produced. If the benefits are lower than the cost, goods should not be provided. So as simple as that. Benefits are greater, yes, we want to see the good. If benefits are lower, we don't want government to provide that good. How much of the good is going to be provided? That's a different question. So once we decide that we are benefiting from the good, we need to decide, well, how much of that good we need to provide. And in that case, we use cost-benefit analysis, a study that's going to compare marginal cost and marginal benefit of providing a public good. We want to keep providing the good as long as marginal benefits exceed marginal cost. Once the situation is reversed, it means we provided too much. So here's some middle ground. We need to find this middle ground where we're producing that good. And ideally, it's going to be at the point where marginal benefits and marginal costs are going to be equivalent. So now we have to measure all those costs and benefits. There are going to be some challenges when it comes to measuring benefits and costs of any policy. So when we decide on whether or not to provide the good or how much of that good to provide, we're going to see some challenges when it comes to actual measurement of benefits and costs. When it comes to cost, we may forget about opportunity cost. So think about this. Every time we decide on spending money onto something, on providing a public good, we also have to think, well, is this the best way to spend our money? So it's a great idea to build additional public park, but we have to remember that if we build in a public park, it means there's less money left for other activities. Maybe we can buy books for local high school, or maybe we can build a gym in the middle school. We have to think about opportunity cost when it comes to measuring cost of any kind of policy. When it comes to the benefits, it's also not that easy to measure those benefits. The reason for it is that consumers or people who receive the benefits have really strong incentives not to reveal the real value of the good that they're about to receive. How does it work? Well, what if you're asked to pay the price that equals to your benefits? Let's say government comes to you and say, we are thinking about providing this particular good, and that good is, let's say, public park. And you're going to be told that you're going to pay as much as you value that good. If you say, yes, I value public park a lot, it means you're going to be paying a lot. If you say, oh no, I don't really need that park, you're going to be really paying just a little bit. So what are you going to say? You're going to say that I don't really want that park. And as a result, you're undervaluing that good, and the good may not be provided at the end, even though everybody's going to benefit. Or a question as we have here. How much are we willing to pay for the streets to be clean? I don't really need those streets to be cleaned. I can live with sometimes them being dirty, right? You don't want to pay a lot, and that's the reason why you say you're not valuing that good that much. But now, what if we ask that question in a different way? What if everyone pays equally? We're going to build a public park. And no matter how much you value it, everybody's going to share that burden of that park, right? Everybody's going to pay the same tax. I'm going to say, oh yes, public park is a fantastic idea. Let's have the biggest possible park we can afford. Because I'm no longer the one who pays the biggest share of that. I know some people who don't care about park are also going to be paying for it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to overstate the value of that park since I'm not the only one who's paying for it. So if I've been asked how many times a week do I want the streets to be cleaned, I would say, yes, I want the streets to be cleaned every single day because I know I'm not the one who's going to pay for all of it. So we are overestimating the value of that good. That's why it's pretty difficult to measure those costs and benefits of any activity of any kind of public policy. So let's look at simple example, fireworks. Is this good or rival? No, it's not rival because we can all watch fireworks at the same time. And because I'm watching them, it doesn't mean that you receive less enjoyment from that good. Is this good excludable? No, it's not excludable. Sometimes some companies or some stadiums are trying to make a fee for service, right? You have to pay $1 to get into the stadium to watch fireworks. Well, I'm going to see as much if I'm standing just outside of that stadium. So this good is really not excludable. People don't have much incentives to pay to watch fireworks. So who's going to want to pay for that good? Not that many people will. Who's going to want to provide that good? Private firms definitely won't be able to provide it because they're simply not going to be making any revenue, thus they're not going to be making any profit. Should we provide that good? Most likely we do. We receive enjoyment from fireworks. We enjoy watching them. As a result, we probably go to work happier, we're being more productive, so there is overall benefit from fireworks. And probably that benefit is much higher than the cost. The next question is how much fireworks to provide. Should we provide fireworks for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? That's the question that can be answered with cost-benefit analysis. We're going to think, okay, what's going to cost us to shoot the firework for extra 1 minute? And what is that extra benefit from watching fireworks for that extra minute? And ideally, we would stop where that extra benefit is equivalent to extra cost. You probably have seen that example when you're watching fireworks and they're going for so long, your neck is getting tired and you wish they stop, but you can't help yourself, you still keep watching it. It means during that time, we didn't calculate it correctly. We provided it too much. So it's also important to provide, not only to provide the good, but also to provide the right quantity of the good. So let's review a couple of things about the public good. Just because good is provided for free, it doesn't mean it's a public good. Only non-rival and non-excludable goods are considered to be public goods. So we have to remember this. Just because something is free, it's not necessarily means that it's a public good. Most of the goods that we consider to be public goods are not necessarily going to be pure public goods. For example, parks, roads, public transportation. So even though some of them will have this attachment that we call public good, they're not necessarily pure public good. They're not necessarily non-excludable and non-rival. Same we can say about public education. It's not necessarily non-rival. Just because it's expensive, it doesn't mean that government needs to provide that good. So a lot of times I get from students that roads are an example of public good because government provides it, and free firms can't provide it because it's extra expensive. That's not the reason why the road is a public good. Even if it's something extremely expensive, private companies can still provide that good. It's really expensive to build an airplane, yet we see private firms providing, like building airplanes. The only reason why firms do not want to provide public good is because of free riders. It's because of that non-excludability property of that particular good. Also, just because a person gets something for free, it doesn't make them free riders. So please make sure that you're not confusing free riders with the free loaders. Just because your friend is hanging out on your couch and doesn't pay for your cable TV doesn't make that person a free rider. You can kick out your friend and force him to leave, not watch your TV. So if you have an ability to stop somebody from using the good for free, those people are not really free riders. So free riders are those people that simply don't have incentives. We can't really force them to pay that price. So make sure you remember those things when you analyze problems concerning public goods. Finally, third role of a government. Government provides us with wealth distribution. And we said in the beginning of the lectures that ideally government is going to do that wealth redistribution in a smart way. So in order to make markets possible, government needs to raise some money. Most likely they're going to do it through taxes. Also, this is the way to redistribute that wealth, right? Some people are going to pay more, some people are going to be paying less. What is fair when it comes to taxes? Should rich people pay more taxes and poor people pay less? Or should everybody pay exactly the same amount? If we're allowing rich people to pay more, we're like taking away their incentives to make more money. So that's not a good situation. But if we don't do that, and if we make everybody to pay exactly the same amount, it's not really fair to poor people who are already struggling, right? If half of your income is 10, let me put it in a different way. $100 for a poor person is going to go far a long way than $100 is for the rich person. So in a way, we are taking away the opportunities from the poor if we haven't this equal amount of money being taxed from rich and poor. Also, how far government should go when it comes to taxation. What is the ideal amount when it comes to taxation? Should it be 8%, 15%, 20%, 30%? Fortunately or unfortunately for us, we're not going to be able to answer these questions. Those are very much debatable questions, and you're encouraged to debate on those points. But once again, remember, debate on your normative views, but don't forget to use positive statements in order to prove your point.